Welcome to WildMane. We upload BL stories daily, so make sure you hit that subscribe button for more. Today, we're diving into a story that begins in the crushing shadows of a devastating heartbreak. It's a journey about what actually happens when absolute, unwavering loyalty is just entirely taken for granted. We're going to follow a path that starts with quiet devastation, unravels the deeply flawed mechanics of a toxic relationship, and ends with the absolute coldest, most calculated return of a man who decided to rise from his own ashes. Let's step right into the silence of the aftermath.
Picture the chilling, eerie silence of a city just before dawn. No one noticed when Noah left. Not his coworkers, not the neighbors, and definitely not the man he had loved and sacrificed literally everything for over the last 5 years. By the time the sunrise actually painted the city gold, every single trace of Noah Hart had vanished. The apartment was just painfully quiet. Left behind on the kitchen counter was a single envelope. Inside, his apartment key, a signed transfer of his shares, and a single, devastating parting realization. He wrote, "I hope one day you become the man I thought you already were." Let that hang in the air for a second. It wasn't a scream, right? It wasn't some dramatic plea. It was the quiet, hollow realization that the man he loved was nothing more than an illusion.
This wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, agonizing erosion over 5 long years. It's that classic sunk cost fallacy. You pour so much time, energy, and money into someone that walking away feels absolutely impossible. Look at the dynamic here. When Ethan lost his job, Noah didn't blink. He worked double shifts. When Ethan wanted to start a tech company, Noah literally emptied his life savings. He cooked the dinners. He packed the lunches. And what did Ethan do? Well, Ethan forgot the birthdays. He completely blew off their anniversaries. When Noah would hand him coffee after a grueling 12-hour shift, Ethan's response wasn't a thank you, it was a cold suggestion that Noah needed to work harder to support them. There was no appreciation, just a heavy, suffocating silence. And Noah? He forgave him every single time, totally confusing all that sacrifice with actual love.
So weeks bleed into months, and those months turn into years. And guess what? Ethan's startup doesn't just survive. It explodes. Investors start showing up. Real, serious money starts flowing in. But here's the thing. Success changed absolutely everything, except Noah. Ethan starts walking through the door in these incredibly expensive, tailored suits. His confidence completely morphs into pure arrogance. He'd walk right past Noah without a kiss, without even a hello. And Noah was still right there, ironing those same shirts, staying awake until midnight, blindly devoted. He mistook Ethan's tired, habitual smiles for actual love, never quite realizing that he had just become a piece of furniture in a life he had completely funded from the ground up.
The real breaking point came a month later, on the night of the company's official launch. And this, guys, is exactly why you never shrink your own world to fit someone else's ambitions. The celebration was held at one of the city's most luxurious hotels. I mean, everybody was there. Investors, media, business partners, everyone, except Noah. Ethan had looked him dead in the eye and told him partners weren't invited. He promised it was strictly professional. And Noah, sweet, trusting Noah, smiled and believed him. He stayed back in their cramped apartment, utterly isolated. That is, until his phone rang an hour later. It was Ethan's assistant. Her voice was trembling. She sounded completely distressed, and all she said was, "Noah, I think you should come."
So Noah quietly enters the hotel. The ballroom is absolutely sparkling beneath these massive crystal chandeliers. Champagne glasses are clinking everywhere. He slips in, totally unnoticed in his cheap, worn-out coat, frantically searching the crowd for the man he built a life with. And then he sees him, standing up on the grand stage. But Ethan isn't alone. He is tightly holding another man's hand. Before Noah can even process what he's seeing, the event host steps up to the microphone, her voice echoing through the glittering room. And we'd also like to congratulate our CEO, Ethan Walker, and his fiancée, Daniel Ross. The room just erupts to thunderous applause. Photographs start flashing across a giant screen, luxury vacations, matching designer watches, intimate smiles that Noah had never, ever been allowed to see. Everything around Noah goes completely dead silent. It's like the air is literally sucked out of his lungs. His hands are shaking as he tries to make sense of the impossible. He's thinking, maybe it's a publicity stunt. Maybe it's just a business arrangement. But then Ethan steps to the microphone. He looks out at the cheering crowd and he delivers the most agonizing line imaginable. He says, "I've finally found someone who truly belongs beside me." Just let that sink in. The roaring cheers of the crowd completely drowned out the sound of Noah's entire world shattering into a million pieces. The man he gave his youth, his money, and his entire heart to was up there smiling a smile that Noah had spent 5 grueling years trying to earn.
Daniel, the fiancé, is actually the first one to spot Noah in the crowd.
Ethan turns, and for a fraction of a second, you see surprise on his face, but it's almost immediately replaced by pure annoyance. Ethan marches over, aggressively pulling Noah aside, fiercely whispering that he wasn't supposed to be there. Noah, who is practically struggling to breathe at this point, simply looks at him and asks, "So, I was convenient?" And Ethan, he coldly rubs his forehead, telling Noah he's embarrassing him and making a scene. He just completely dismisses their entire 5-year relationship. He literally calls Noah's financial support and love charity. He tells Noah he gave him a place to live, completely ignoring the fact that Noah paid the rent, Noah paid the company registration fees, and Noah's tears built the very ground Ethan was currently standing on.
But incredibly, the cruelest blow of the night didn't even come from Ethan. It came from Daniel. Daniel approaches them perfectly calm, wearing a suit that easily cost more than Noah made in an entire year, and he knows exactly who Noah is. Ethan had told him everything. Well, everything except the fact that Noah still thought he was Ethan's partner. Daniel extends his hand, smiles this polite, practiced smile, and delivers a devastating insult. He says, "Thank you for supporting Ethan until he reached someone who matched his future." It was polite, sure, but it was dripping with absolute venom, and it pierced Noah deeper than the betrayal itself. In their eyes, he wasn't a partner. He was just a stepping stone, a temporary, convenient bridge to get Ethan to a better life.
In that exact moment, the entire illusion shattered. Noah looked at Ethan and for the very first time saw him clearly. This wasn't the man he loved. It was a complete stranger wearing his face. Noah's response wasn't explosive. It was profoundly, chillingly final. He reached into his pocket and placed his apartment key directly into Ethan's hand. Then, he unclasped the cheap engagement bracelet Ethan had bought him years ago, pressing it firmly into Ethan's palm. And finally, he turned and walked away. He didn't scream, he didn't cry, he didn't beg for an explanation. He just walked out into the pouring rain, leaving behind 5 years of his life, his footsteps slow, steady, and completely final.
Now, 4 hours later, Noah was on a one-way flight to Switzerland, and he literally never looked back. What followed was a brutal, grueling reinvention. The way he weaponized his grief into absolute laser focus is a masterclass in self-rebuilding. Month 1 was total isolation. Just him, overlooking a frozen lake, deleting every photo, erasing every message, changing his number so Ethan could never, ever reach him. By year 1, he had enrolled in Europe's most elite luxury brand management program, studying until sunrise every single night. By year 2, he was hired as the youngest strategic analyst at a major conglomerate. And by year 3, director of international strategy. He climbed straight out of the abyss, clawing his way to the absolute top of the corporate food chain.
This meteoric rise introduces a fascinating character who is the complete opposite of Ethan, Damien Laurent. He's the demanding, absolutely terrifying young CEO of the Laurent Group. This is a guy who fired vice presidents in the middle of meetings and literally never smiled. Damien actually arrived as a guest lecturer during Noah's first year of his program. While every other student presented these safe, boring, cookie-cutter ideas, Noah got up and presented a meticulously researched strategy that involved visiting abandoned factories and interviewing retired, forgotten craftsmen. Damien saw it instantly. He saw Noah's unique, tireless brilliance. He told Noah to quit his job on the spot and brought him directly into his empire.
Once he was inside Laurent Group, Noah didn't just survive the brutal hours, he absolutely thrived. I mean, he was a machine. He revived a struggling century-old watch brand. He completely sold out a forgotten perfume line in weeks. He took an outdated fashion label and made it the most relevant, sought-after name in all of Europe. Executives twice his age who had doubted him were suddenly completely silenced. And this just powerfully illustrates something crucial. Intense loyalty and hard work yield massive, world-changing results, but only when they're placed in the hands of someone who actually values them.
But here's the kicker. Damien noticed way more than just the profit margins. One late night, he found Noah still at his desk after 12 straight hours, having completely forgotten to eat. Damien quietly walked in, set a cup of coffee down, and made this profound observation. He said, "You think you're only valuable when you're working." Damien wasn't warm, he wasn't outwardly affectionate, but he noticed. When Noah was tired, coffee just appeared. When he worked overnight, a hot breakfast was waiting on his desk. These quiet, consistent gestures meant so much more to Noah than any grand, empty declaration Ethan had ever made, because Damien expected absolutely nothing in return. He was simply taking care of his own.
3 years after standing soaking wet in the rain, the transformation was completely finished, and the contrast is just staggering. He is no longer the broken, insecure boy who apologized before speaking, desperate for any crumb of validation, confusing endless sacrifice with love. No, He now stands in the glass headquarters of Larndrup with this quiet, terrifying certainty. He wears perfectly tailored suits, his shoulders are straight, his eyes are calm. He no longer seeks anyone's approval. He is powerful, he is composed, and he is completely untouchable.
And then, one afternoon, his assistant hands him a sleek folder detailing their next major corporate acquisition. The target? Walker Technologies. The dramatic twist of fate hits like an absolute freight train. Ethan's company, the very company Noah sacrificed his youth to help build, had expanded way too fast. Now, it's drowning in massive debt. Investors are fleeing left and right. Projects are collapsing. Walker Technologies is failing rapidly, and it desperately requires a buyout from the Laurent Group just to keep the lights on. The signing ceremony is set in Noah's hometown. There is such deep, poetic justice here, isn't there? Returning to outgrow the very places and people that once diminished you.
Fate really does have a brilliant sense of timing. The Laurent Group private jet touches down on the runway, luxury cars are lined up waiting, executives are bowing respectfully, and Noah steps out last. It is cinematic. He's wearing a tailored black overcoat, leather gloves, silver cufflinks catching the light. Camera flashes explode as reporters swarm the tarmac, screaming questions at the mysterious, powerful young executive arriving to save the day. And across the entrance, standing with his panicked staff, looking noticeably older, stressed, and totally exhausted, is Ethan Walker. Ethan glances at the arriving delegation, and the folder he's holding completely slips from his hand, crashing to the floor.
Time completely stops. Ethan's lips part, and all the breath just leaves his chest. He takes one hesitant, shaking step forward, murmuring in this breathless, panicked realization. Noah, is that really you? He is staring at the powerful, intimidating executive sent to save his failing life's work, and suddenly realizing it is the very man he threw away like garbage 3 years ago, the man he thought would never, ever leave, the man who is now entirely, irreversibly out of his league.
Noah stops. He doesn't look at Ethan with anger. He doesn't look at him with longing or even sadness. He looks at him with this polite, icy distance, like meeting a complete stranger who holds absolutely no place in his heart. And he delivers a final devastating blow. He just says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Walker." Without waiting for a response, Noah walks right past him, leaving Ethan frozen in the chilling winds of his own regret, realizing the boy he shattered had returned as a king he couldn't even touch. It's a powerful reminder that true closure doesn't always come from revenge. Sometimes it simply comes from outgrowing the people who hurt you. So tell me, are you currently building a kingdom for someone who only sees you as a stepping stone? Let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment on what BL story you want us to cover next.